Hi, I'm great to see so many of you today. I'm Josh Phillips. I'm working at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero on basically industrial resource efficiency and circular economy for the built environment. And what we're working on with respect to the built environment element of the circular economy strategy, it's going to have quite a sort of wide scope. If I just sort of initially define that, when we're talking about the built environment, we really mean homes, infrastructure, and public spaces. Um, and so there's three kind of main levels at which we're thinking about that scope. And that includes sort of the materials themselves, so aggregates, concrete, cement, metals, clay products, gypsum, stone, plastics, glass. And then we're thinking about the construction products as well that make up a building, as well as its internal sort of fixtures and fittings. So heating and ventilation, lifts, bathrooms, furniture, fixtures and equipment. And then, as well as that, the broader structure. So buildings are obviously a massive part of this, whether they're residential, commercial, industrial, or institutional buildings, but also we're very much considering infrastructure. And so that includes roads, bridges, transport infrastructure generally, as well as utilities and things like energy infrastructure. So we're considering this with quite a wide scope. And just to sort of set the scene a little bit, I mean, there's been some interesting discussion on the chat as well, which has reflected some of this. We know that in the sort of construction and in the built environment sector, I think the latest stats from 2022 suggest something like 94% of waste from the construction and demolition waste would actually be recovered, 94%, which sounds very good in paper, and obviously that is better than it has been, but I think it's mostly plateaued in recent years. And the real thing that we need to be focusing on is actually preventing or minimizing the amount of downcycling that is going on. So this isn't just about sort of increasing recycling. It's probably the most important opportunity is increasing reuse and maximizing the value of those materials at the end of their first life so that they can have not just second, but hopefully more multiple lives as far as possible to really reduce that loss of material value. Um, and so that's where the main focus is. Rather than just purely on recycling. It's about increasing the value of that and more towards reuse rather than sort of recycling as much as possible. And so in terms of the interventions, the areas of focus are broadly going to be, first of all, thinking about embedding circularity within the public sector as a first sort of mover. And so thinking about how we can leverage procurement frameworks to promote circular practices, and how we can integrate circular principles into planning and development, and increasingly lots of local authorities, or at least I think starting mostly with sort of Greater London Authority with their circular economy statements and promotion of things like pre-demolition orders. You've got a lot of sort of county councils adopting similar things, as well as whole life carbon assessments and stuff like that. And then as well as that, we're thinking about the opportunities for encouraging innovation through sort of funding and collaboration opportunities. And then beyond that, there's this question around standards for measuring and reducing embodied and whole life carbon. And then about material data specifically, can we standardize that? Can we make sure it's sort of provided to facilitate reuse? Obviously, the lack of material data tracking is a big barrier to reuse, and sometimes the amount of data available for construction products is actually quite appalling. So that is very important for us to work out how to improve. And then beyond that, thinking more widely about the incentive structures and the wider policy landscape, we know that at the moment the incentives fiscally don't necessarily align towards circularity. Things like the difference in sort of VAT applied to new builds versus sort of retrofit or any kind of renovation activity creates a sort of inherent incentive towards the new build for a lot of projects. And we've heard plenty of examples of buildings that are maybe only 5, 10 years old being taken down completely unnecessarily, partly due to poor planning, buildings not being designed for adaptability and reuse and things like that, which is a massive, massive waste of resources. And so we need to consider how we change that. And then more widely, there's this question around soil reuse as well. A huge amount of waste that does go to landfill from the sector comes from soil. And we have to think about how do we minimize that and make best use of that soil instead of it going straight to landfill.